Okay.
Have you tested it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Hello, everybody.
How was your...
Oh, it was good.
It was good.
Yes,
Okay.
everything
That's great.
went
That's
well.
great.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we are Lina, Catherine, Sabina, Talia, Anastasia, Anna, and Krisa.
Lisa?
And we're delighted to have you here. So, let's start. First of all, I would like to ask you, how did you feel to see your first novel gradually come together, to see it perform in front of your eyes? How did it feel?
You mean as the television series? It can be a very difficult experience for writers to have their work taken from the page onto the screen, and many of my friends have gone through that experience, and a lot of them said it was terrible. They didn't like it at all. And because of their advice, I decided I wouldn't allow myself to be unhappy. So I said to Mega that I would be happy for them to make the television series if I could be involved, and they said I could be. So I was very close to it all the way through. And I think for that reason, I felt very happy with it. I was kind of able to say if I didn't like something. And sometimes something would be added or taken away, and we discussed it, and then everyone was happy, the director, the screenwriter and me. So it could have been awful, because I know it can be awful. I mean, many of my friends, they've been to a film premiere, for example, and they've left halfway through because they just thought, I can't stand it. It really can be very upsetting. But I was involved with the casting and the music as well, so even before the filming I was kind of very close. So it turned out to be a very fantastic experience, and I met made lots of friends, and it was a very big production. We were there for nearly 2 years in Crete. First of all in Athens doing the casting, and then in Crete for the filming. So it was a very big part of my life, and I would say some of the best years of my life in doing it. So yeah, 100% good experience. So that answers.
Now,
Okay.
if you had to rewrite anything of your book Lilac, what would you change, or would you like to elaborate further?
Oh, interesting. Now, when I wrote the book, there were lots of factual things that I didn't know because I wasn't able to read Greek, and I just sort of wrote it from my imagination. And when we were turning it into the television series, lots more research was done, because we needed to make something that was, let's say the book is this big, and to make 26 episodes we needed to make it bigger, so we had to add things. And one of the things that we discovered that I didn't know when we wrote the book was that the men who went to guard the island, some of them were prisoners. They were in prison for maybe a really bad crime, and they were given the choice either to stay in prison or to go and work on Spinalonga, which is sort of another kind of prison. So these guards, and one of them called him Grigoris, I don't know if you remember from the television, but there was a really nasty man, and in the end he gets murdered. Do you remember? Do you remember the leader of the kind of governor, the Papa Dimitri character? In the end he kills him. So it made a big drama to have this very nasty man, who's the guard, kind of basically not being nice to the Spinalonga patients. And I would definitely have added that to the book if I'd known it existed. So things like that, quite a few details.
Thank you. Okay, in your
novels, fact mingles with fiction. What does that? What possibilities does this intermingling allows you to explore?
It gives you great freedom, but if you're writing about historical events, I don't change them. I'm very strict about making sure that things happen at the right time and in the right year, and trying to, like for example, my book about Thessaloniki. It was sort of, sometimes it was a bit inconvenient for the plot that something took place, let's say in 1938, and maybe it would have been better for my story to have been slightly later, but I never alter the facts if they're there. And I like working with fact because it kind of gives me a framework in a way. It gives you something that's definite to start with, and then I imagine what it was like for the characters to be there at that time. I know some academic historians who don't like people making fiction out of history. They're a little bit like, don't do that, because they think that maybe the person writing the story will change the historical events, and then people will think something happened and it actually didn't happen. What I try to do is stick to those facts. And there's a very good book about Thessaloniki that can be read called The City of Ghosts. Have you come across this book, which was written by a British historian, Mark Zan? And he at the moment is reading The Thread, because I met him last week. So he's now reading my book, which has all the fiction, using some of the facts from his book. So I'm waiting for him to ring me up and say, why did you do that? But I hope he won't. I hope he'll be happy with it. But I mean, for me, it's I like holding on to something rather than just making everything up. I wouldn't know where to start.
In your novels and generally in your works, we can see that you use imagery that derives from Greek scenery. And I would like to ask you what led you, what caused this kind of love for Greece and this kind of choice of your use in Greece, so that you, let's say, devoted your whole work to almost everything you've written is about Greece. And what would be some other alternative scenery that would attract you to write so much about it?
Well, I wrote one book about Spain, the one in between the island and the Thread. And again, that was a very interesting set of historical.
Yes, I totally agree.
Poor you. No, Scotland's beautiful. It is beautiful. What was the weather like?
It was sunny, but it was very. The wind was too cold and everything, but the rain was beautiful. It didn't rain or snow or anything.
Oh, that's good. It didn't rain or snow. Well, generally, let's say today in London, and right up to yesterday, and it's nearly June, we're all wearing our winter coats and boots, and like that, really cold, and it's snowing in the north. And it's a very, physical thing for me, that I hate the cold. And as soon as I land here, I've changed from black, you notice I was all black, and now I'm wearing this colour. I couldn't be wearing this in England. And I go, why is she wearing summer clothes? It's snowing, she must be mad.
So it's the weather that also.
It's a lot to do with the weather and the light. The light in Greece is very, I just find it extremely beautiful. So I want to spend lots of time here. And
I know that you own a place in Crete.
Yes, I have a house in Crete.
From like the 70s or
Oh
something.
no, I only bought the house there.
But you visit Greece a lot.
Yes, I've been coming since a lot before you were all born, because I've been here longer than you have. Hislop first came in, I think, 1976 or 77, and I've come every year since then, so that's 40 years nearly. And I bought the house about 5 years ago. Gosh, there's a lot that inspires me here. You know, your history. It is a lot to do with the landscape. That's why I love being here. But as well as the landscape and the people, there are so many interesting things that have happened in your history. And for some reason, I don't really like writing about England. You know, I don't do it very much. I've written a few short stories that are set there, but they're not my favourite things I've written. I find English characters very difficult to write.
Well, I think that's what has established you somehow as a writer, because if you write about something you don't know, you didn't grow up here, you're not that much accustomed with our traditions and everything, you just read about them and learn about them, but you're born with them, so you do that thing, and that's what establishes you, because it's something foreign to you in a level. So people say, oh, she's English and she writes about us in Greece and she knows so many things, and she presents them in such a way that, you know, everybody, my mother, my grandmother, my aunt, me, were obsessed with the island when we saw it on television, and it was like, she did a great job. Everybody used to say that.
I think sometimes when you're an outsider, when you are a foreigner, you see things, everything's kind of new and different. Whereas when you're born and you grow up, it's just normal. Whereas for me there's nothing in Greece is normal. I don't take anything for granted. I mean, in Crete, for example, in the summer, we have a lot of Glendia. You know, every village, and maybe if you've been going to those from age, 1 year up to 18, 19, you go, oh no, not another Glendy. You know? But I go to maybe 6 Glendy in the summer. I go to every single one in, near where I have my house, and they're all, for me, they're all different. They all have different characteristics. But I find them really fantastic. So, and that's what, and everything I see, I mean, gosh, none of that would happen in Scotland or England or Ireland or Wales. It's all very, very bare Cretan. It probably wouldn't happen in mainland Greece. So, I think I just see things for the first time and I'm very fresh to it.
This brings us to a very convenient point. I would like to ask you, you're English. You come from a very different cultural background than this one. To write your books about Greece, you had to perform some research. What was this research consisted of? What was your schedule? And I think that...
And how did that change you as a person and as a writer?
Oh, right. Gosh. Well, a lot of my sort of serious research, say for history, is done with books, simple as that. And I do that we have 2 very big libraries in London, and one of them, which is called the British Library, and I think you have an equivalent, and then the London Library, but they have, more books than you could ever read in a lifetime. So I spend a lot of time in there, usually about 2 years for each of those books. Yeah, I mean, especially the thread and the one about the Spanish Civil War. Yeah, and also I wasn't really interested in history when I was at school, because it just seemed all too long ago and it didn't seem very relevant for some reason, so I wasn't very interested in it. And as I've got older, I've become more interested in history, because I can see how it has a relevance to now, whereas when I was a child or a student, I didn't really see that it